DocTalk is brought to you by MERCK Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Hey folks, Dr. Dan here. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to have a show talking about lice and how to prevent and control lice in cattle. A hot topic during some cold days, so stay tuned. We'll be right back with DocTalk.
No one plans to get sick or injured, but when life happens, it's important you and your family are protected. Kansas Farm Bureau health plans are there to provide continued health care coverage to meet your needs. Choose from a broad range of individual and family plans. And if you're over 65, we have options for you too. Learn more at kfbhealthplans.com or contact a Farm Bureau Financial Services agent near you.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways, of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey there folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson and I'm glad you joined me today. I'm the department head here of animal science at Iowa State University, where we have about 1,100 students, 1,000 of them are undergrad, 100 of them are graduate students, 50 some faculty, and it's been quite a transition during COVID. Nothing that's worth having is easy, but I had a great time with our collegiate cattle group, have had a great time with our block and bridle group, and many of our undergrad organizations, providing some of the insight and just getting to interact with the students as we move forward through these not so normal times. But face-to-face interaction and getting out on the farm, doing the chores, being together, cattle handling, all the above are so important. So as we talk about moving into the wintertime and we start thinking about protecting our cattle, and one of the things I think is probably most underestimated when it comes to processing protocols in the feedlot or working cows in the fall is controlling lice. And it seems to be every year a little bit more and more of an issue as we have moved through some of these different products and different things. And I hear a lot of cases of people calling saying, hey, we've got lice real bad in our cows and it doesn't matter what we do, we can't seem to get rid of it. So I thought today we'd take a little bit of time and we'd talk about just what it is. First of all, lice is a major problem in the winter. Lice or mange, this is something, we don't see it in the summer. When we have blue skies, sunny days, warm weather, lice don't like that weather. However, lice love dark, gloomy, cloudy, cold days, okay? So we're not going to really see lice problems in cows or in feedlot steers until it gets to be winter. So what do cattle that have lice issues look like? And it can be confused with other types of things. We might think that it's a mineral deficiency or something to that, but when we start to see patches of hair move off the cattle, and you'll see it off their rump, around their tail head, you'll see it off their shoulders, their midline, anywhere they can rub, that's where they're going to lose their hair. So when cattle have lice, the one thing you'll see just about immediately with them is you pull in the feed yard and all of a sudden you look and all the cattle are around the fences and they're just rubbing their sides. And so we'll start to see the hair loss in the winter, and we'll also see radical behavior as far as those animals scratching themselves or rubbing themselves on posts, just anything to relieve themselves from that itch. So it's something that you can see easily, but sometimes it's misdiagnosed. And sometimes we think it's lice when it's not. I had a group of steers that they laid down in the wintertime, their belly hair was wet, and they actually like froze to the ground. And when they stood up, it pulled the hair off their belly, and we started to think about lice, but really it was environmental. Sometimes we may see mineral deficiencies or things that might lead you to think that these animals are having issues with lice, but really they're not. So as we start to move forward, as we start to think about preparation for the fall and for the winter, one of the things we have to start putting into our protocol is lice control. We're going to take a break. When we come back, there'll be a lot more here on DocTalk. We're going to talk about lice, ectoparasites, winter, and your cows. Thanks for joining me. Hey, welcome to Cattle First, sponsored by Boehringer Ingelheim Vet Medica. There are two reasons why animals get sick: overwhelming dose of a pathogen or a suppressed immune system. Number one cause of a suppressed immune system is stress. We need to make sure that we decrease the stress of cattle. Low stress cattle handling, acclimating these cattle when they come to your facility, making sure that cattle can trust you. So building trust with cattle, just like you would with a dog or a horse on your property, is vitally important, because animals that don't trust you won't show you clinical signs. Once you gain those cattle's trust, all of a sudden one of them says, hey, I'm not feeling good, take me to the hospital and treat me. Otherwise, they think you're a predator and they mask their clinical signs and you don't catch them. This has been Cattle First by Boehringer Ingelheim Vet Medica.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
When you're in the cattle business, no matter how much it's a business, it still starts with cattle. It's this basic notion that sits at the core of how we approach things at Boehringer Ingelheim. We understand when you put the cattle first, it just naturally leads to doing the right things. If you want to do well in this business, you start by doing right. Take care of the cattle, and they'll take care of you.
ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need. From prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey there, folks. Welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here at Iowa State University, where I'm the Department Chair of Animal Science. And so it's been a little bit of a transition, but actually Iowa's my home state. So coming back home and being with the students here at my alma mater at Iowa State has been great. I dearly miss my friends and my family that are in Kansas and at Kansas State. And so it's great to drive back and forth, but it's really good that Iowa State University allowed me to continue doing this show. And I thank our sponsors, but more importantly, I thank y'all for watching. I've gotten some great emails during the transition, and during COVID, it's been awesome to hear from y'all that the show is making an impact. So when we talk about lice, one of the things you need to understand about lice is there's really two kinds of lice. There are biting lice and there are sucking lice, and it's important because both types of lice will cause the cattle to rub. They'll cause them to itch. They'll cause the same type of clinical signs. The difference is when we go to treat animals for lice, some products like injectables will work against the sucking lice, but injectable products such as our ivermectins won't work against the biting lice. So those lice have to be locked on and sucking to get that constant flow of blood with the ivermectin product in there to go to that sucking lice. But if it's a biting lice where it's just biting on the surface of the animal, it's not as easy to kill them with the injectable. So we have to use a pour-on product if we have the biting lice. So it's important to know that there's two types of lice. They're both present all across the United States. And so when we get into the weather in the wintertime, we start to change our processing protocols from just including an injectable or just including a white paste dewormer to also including some sort of topical or some sort of pour-on product as well. Your veterinarian will know your region, know your bugs, know the products, and be able to help you really, really well. When we start to think about when we're going to implement lice prevention, the first thing we have to do is, you can get the animals in the chute if you want to check to see if they're lice. And you can just part the hair across the midline and you will see the lice on the skin surface. You can see those lice move, and you can see whether or not those animals are truly infected. You can try some things like tape and different things to try to catch and see if it's on the surface. But really, you should just be able to, you'll see the clinical signs and you'll be able to see the lice. So the question I always get is, when should I start to provide a pour-on, or when should I start to put my delicing program into play? And the first thing I say is, when we start to head into those colder, cloudy fall days, that's when in the processing protocols, whether you're a backgrounder, a grow yard, if you have cows, that's when we're going to start to think about our lice products and our pour-ons. And so we will treat those animals, and during our processing protocols in the feed yard, we'll give those animals a pour-on. We'll give them an injectable ivermectin for the internals, might give a white paste dewormer for the internals, plus some sort of pour-on. You can also use the pour-on ivermectins, like Ivomec pour-on, Dectomax pour-on, and different Sidectin pour-on. Don't want to miss a brand, sorry. But anyway, you can use those pour-ons, and those pour-ons will work for both internal and external parasites, both biting and sucking lice. But when we start to think about some of the things that we're going to implement if we're using an injectable, then you're going to want to add that pour-on product during the winter months. We use it when the animals come in for many different things. So when I come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about lice. We're going to talk about delousing. Thanks for joining us.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to Western Kansas.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we're glad to answer it and work with you.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need, from prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey there, folks. Welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here. We're in Ames, Iowa, where I work at Iowa State University, but I still get out and about with the feed yards there in western Kansas and Nebraska and different spots in the U.S. Just so glad to understand how essential beef cattle production, swine production, dairy production, poultry production is to this country. So we're talking about lice in cattle, and when we start to think about delousing them, I'm just going to go through our protocol. The first thing is that when these calves come through at processing or weaning, we're going to give them an injectable or a white dewormer for the internal parasites. We're then going to use some sort of pour-on product like some sort of pyrethrin or pyrethroid, work with your veterinarian, a pour-on that is specifically for external parasites. If the animals are coming through for reimplant in a grow yard or in a feedlot, those animals were probably processed during a warm time where we didn't use a delicing protocol. So as they're coming through, I'm not going to re-deworm those animals or give them an injectable or a white paste, but I am going to give them a pour-on for the lice at that point during the winter. So one of the things that's really important about getting rid of lice in the winter is the application of the product. And when you read on the label, it says you need to get that spread from the pole to the tail head. It's really important to make sure that you get a long sweeping motion when you apply that delicing product, because I see so many people just squirt them in the middle of the back, or they just dump it with the ladle in the middle of the back, and that's not going to get the coverage done, folks. So regardless of what product you use, the making sure that you get that animal covered all the way from the pole to the tail head is extremely important. It's probably one of the most important things when I talk to people about, well, we poured them 2 or 3 times, but it didn't seem to work. Another thing is don't start too late. I see when people start the delousing products after they've already got an infection. And while it's important to do, it may take more than one application and to get the infection, because sometimes these infestation rates can get so bad, and sometimes they become resistant to one product or the other. So working with different products, working with your veterinarian, the veterinarian is really a key. Understanding what other people are going through, what other people are using, what other people what is working at other people's places is extremely important in my mind when you're trying to develop a program that's going to work on your farm, and that veterinarian is the one that is tied to understanding everybody else's operation. So we're going to start early in the winter. We're going to use that pour-on. We're going to cover them from pole to tailhead. Now that doesn't mean all of our pour-ons are the same way. If you're using some of the ivermectin, it's still good to get good coverage and things to that nature. I don't use a lot of pour-on ivermectin products because I don't use them so much for the control of internal parasites. I'll use the injectable with a pour-on or the white paste with a pour-on. So those are just some of the things that as I walk through and we start to talk about lice control, this is a major issue, and it's a major issue in your cows during the winter. It's a major issue after we have weaned calves and we have those calves in the feed yard. It's been estimated that you can lose up to a 1/4 pound a day, average daily gain, because of lice. It's not because they lose weight from something that's causing debilitation, except for the fact that it decreases their behavior. Those animals aren't going to the bunk because their mind's on what's itching. They're going up and they're being more active and itching against the posts and different things to that nature. So this is something that can be pretty costly in your herd or in your feed yard or in your grow yard if you're not taking care of it. So again, timing, application, different products, highly important when you're starting to think about what you're going to do with lice control. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to do some wrap up on ectoparasites in general, but mainly talk about some of the new things and new items that we're seeing, getting you prepared for winter, taking care of those cattle. It's fall processing time. Thanks for watching DocTalk. We'll be back right after these messages.
These days, no one can afford to take the risk of being without financial protection against high health care costs, not even for a few days. Kansas Farm Bureau health plans offer short-term health care coverage to fill in those temporary gaps. Short-term health plans can provide you with medical coverage when you are between health plans, helping lower your potential financial risk. Learn more at kfbhealthplans.com or contact a Farm Bureau financial services agent near you.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need. From prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, Dr. Dan here at DocTalk. Thanks for joining us. I've moved to Ames, Iowa, where I'm back home at Iowa State. Still have a lot of friends in Kansas, Nebraska, Texas. So appreciate the emails, appreciate the contact. After this show, it's going to be awesome because we're going to do one more show on WebEx, but then we have the green light. We're going to get back out and we're going to get to some vet clinics. We're going to get to some operations, and you're going to see more action out on the farm. So excited about that and excited about getting back to what we do in our roots, and that's working cattle, working horses, and being in pig operations and so on. So when we start to think about lice, and you know, one of the questions I get is, well, when do I quit, you know, in my feed yard, or when do I quit? So again, just as you use the further north you are, the sooner in the fall you're going to start because it starts to get colder and cloudier. And the further north you are, the longer you're going to have the duration of using this product as cattle come in on arrival, as you get new calves in, whether it's little calves, big calves, whatever, as they come into your operation. If I have them caught in the chute, this is something that's cheap. It's something that I'm going to put on their back, and then I'm going to kick them out. But what we're going to do is we're going to wait until those cold, rainy days in the spring go away. When we start to see more sunshine, when we start to see some days of some warm weather, that's when it's okay to quit doing it. So the further north you live in the United States, the sooner you're going to start using the delicing products, and the longer you're going to use them in the spring. As we move to the south, as you get into the southern part of the United States, you know, you may just use it in the deep winter months of bringing calves in, but a lot of y'all in the West Coast and far south really don't have an issue with lice, so that's not something that's a big problem for y'all, and so I think it's important to understand that timing. So if I was going to wrap up on lice, the first thing I'd say is the clinical signs of lice: cattle lose their hair, you come in, they're scratching the posts down, they're scratching the fences down. Remember, there's two types of lice. There's biting lice and there's sucking lice. When we go to use a product, we have to understand that when we give an injectable ivermectin product, that will kill the sucking lice, but it'll have no effect on the biting lice. Therefore, as we head into the winter, as we are in the winter, we're going to use a product alongside of our injectable ivermectins. We're going to use some sort of pour-on product to control lice. The thing about the pour-ons, when do we start? We start in the fall. We're going to start when we get those cold, cloudy days. And then the big thing is application. When you apply that product, make sure that you don't just squirt it in one area, that you get good coverage all along. If there's anything else I've said today that I've seen more issues with controlling lice, it's making sure that you get good application of that delicing product from at least withers to tailhead, but even pole to tailhead, so that you make sure that you get good coverage. I want to thank you all for watching DocTalk. We have a lot of fun here on the show. And remember, always work with your local veterinarian. And if you want to know more about what we do here on the show, you can find us at www.doctalktv.com. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson here at Iowa State University, and I'll see you down the road.
DocTalk is brought to you by MERCK Animal Health, the science of healthier animals. Join Ag AM in Kansas, everyone, Monday through Friday mornings on local stations throughout the state of Kansas, and every day on your favorite social media. Monday kicks off with Dr. Dan Thomson on DocTalk, as he's joined by leading veterinarians and nutritionists in food animal production. They discuss current production challenges and tips on how to deal and prepare for those challenges. Tuesdays on Farm Factor, it is our friends here at KFRM Radio with interviews from top experts in agriculture. Wednesday, it is a little of Kansas history with Deb Goodrich on Around Kansas. Thursday, Britton Rucker brings us Ag Etc. This day is filled with agricultural research and ag happenings around the Midwest, including our new Young Leaders in Ag segment. We end the week with Authentic Ag and updates from your local checkoff programs. Make sure to check your local listings or like us on Facebook and Twitter at Ag AM in Kansas, and on YouTube at Farming Unlimited TV, so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching.